A sudden downpour. A sleek, black Mercedes-Benz, crippled, sits on the shoulder of a rain-slicked road. Inside, a powerful man named Mr. Sterling glares at his useless phone, with no service. A figure emerges from the gray curtain of rain, a young black boy named Jamal, his hoodie soaked, heading home from a long day. He sees the struggle. A choice: walk on, avoiding the inevitable suspicion, or offer help. He makes his choice. But this single act of kindness is about to trigger a chain of events so brutal, so unjust, that it will threaten to shatter a young life, only to reveal a truth more powerful than the prejudice that started it all. The town of Crestwood was a picture of quiet, simmering division. On the hill, behind wrought iron gates, were the sprawling estates of the wealthy. In the valley below, rows of modest, well-kept houses formed the predominantly black neighborhood where Jamal lived with his mother. 17 and sharp-eyed, Jamal navigated these two worlds with cautious awareness. He knew the unspoken rules: keep your head down, be polite, and never, ever give anyone a reason to see you as a threat. That afternoon, the sky had opened up with a vengeance. Jamal pulled his hood tighter, the cold rain seeping through his worn jacket. He was coming from the public library, a stack of programming books tucked under his arm, his escape, his dream of building a different life. His sneakers splashed through growing puddles as he trudged the long walk home. That's when he saw it. The Mercedes was a statue of luxury, now beached and helpless. A man in a tailored overcoat was standing outside, his expensive leather shoes sinking into the mud as he futilely waved a dead cell phone at the sky. Jamal's first instinct, honed by years of his mother's worried warnings, was to cross the street. Don't get involved. Don't be seen. But he watched the man struggle for another moment. He saw the frustration, not anger, on his face. It was a look of human helplessness that transcended wealth. Jamal's innate decency overruled his fear. Taking a deep breath, he approached slowly, making sure his hands were visible. "Sir," he called out over the drumming rain. The man, Mr. Sterling, spun around, his eyes wide with surprise that quickly flickered into something else, a brief, unguarded moment of assessment. Jamal kept his voice respectful. "Do you need some help? I can change a tire." Mr. Sterling hesitated, his gaze taking in Jamal's soaked hoodie and the books he carried. It was a calculated pause, one Jamal was familiar with. But then, the man nodded, a look of relief washing over his features. "The spare is in the trunk." I'd be very grateful." For the next 15 minutes, Jamal worked efficiently in the pouring rain, jacking up the car, removing the lug nuts. Mr. Sterling held an umbrella over him, making awkward conversation, asking about his books, his plans. The interaction felt, against all odds, positive. Rising action, 5 to 7 minutes 700 words. As Jamal tightened the last lug nut on the compact spare, the whine of a siren cut through the rain's steady rhythm. A patrol car, lights flashing, pulled up sharply behind the Mercedes. 2 officers stepped out. Their postures were rigid, hands resting on their belts. Jamal instinctively froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. This was the scenario he had dreaded his entire life. The lead officer, his voice sharp and authoritative, addressed Mr. Sterling. "Everything all right here, sir? We got a call about a suspicious person attempting to break into a vehicle." His eyes never left Jamal, who was still crouched by the tire, his hands covered in grime. Mr. Sterling began to explain. No, it's quite all right, officer. This young man was just helping me. My tire was flat." The second officer cut in, his tone dripping with skepticism. "Is that right?" He took a step toward Jamal. "Son, stand up slowly. Keep your hands where I can see them." The command was cold, devoid of the respect offered to Mr. Sterling. Jamal complied, every movement slow and deliberate, a practice dance of survival. "But he's telling the truth," Mr. Sterling insisted, his voice rising with frustration. "I was stranded. He offered assistance." The lead officer gave a humorless smile. "Very noble of you to say, sir. We have to check these things. You can't be too careful." He turned his full attention to Jamal. "What's your name? Where do you live? What are you doing all the way out here?" Each question felt like a trap. Jamal answered quietly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Jamal Williams, sir. I live on Maple. I was just walking home from the library." He gestured to his books, now sitting in a puddle. The officer glanced at the books as if they were evidence of a lie. "Let me see some ID." Jamal slowly reached for his pocket, his movements telegraphic. As he handed over his school ID, the officer's partner shone a flashlight into the Mercedes interior, as if expecting to find something stolen. The injustice of it was a physical weight on Jamal's chest. He had been the one helping, the one getting soaked and dirty, and now he was being treated like a criminal. Mr. Sterling was visibly angry now, his face flushed. "This is outrageous. He was helping me. I demand you leave him alone." But the officers were in their rhythm, the script written by Prejudice. They ran Jamal's name. They asked him again to explain what he was doing. The rain continued to fall, soaking them all, but the chill Jamal felt came from within. It was the cold familiarity of being presumed guilty for the crime of existing while black. The standoff stretched, a tense silence broken only by the crackle of the police radio. Mr. Sterling's protests were being politely ignored. Jamal stood, hands now held slightly higher, feeling the eyes of the officers, of Mr. Sterling, and of the few passing cars that slowed to watch the spectacle. He was an exhibit, a problem to be processed. Just as one officer moved to guide Jamal toward the patrol car for a further chat, Mr. Sterling's demeanor shifted. The frustrated businessman vanished, replaced by a figure of cold, formidable authority. He pulled out his wallet, but not for his ID. He extracted a small, pristine white business card. He stepped directly between the officers and Jamal, his voice dropping into a low, dangerous register that carried more power than any shout. "Officers," he said, his tone icy and precise. "This is my card. My name is Robert Sterling. You may know my company, Sterling Ventures. The man you are about to unlawfully detain is Jamal Williams. He is my guest. He has just performed an invaluable service for me." He paused, letting his name and title hang in the damp air. The lead officer's eyes flickered to the card, and a flicker of recognition, then dread, passed over his face. Mr. Sterling continued, each word a hammer blow. "You are responding to a call that was not placed by me. You are currently harassing a minor based on a presumption of guilt that is not only false but, I assure you, legally actionable. You will return his identification to him. You will apologize to him. And you will explain to me, right now, the precise protocol for when a citizen reports a Good Samaritan as a suspicious person based solely on his appearance. Because from where I am standing, this looks an awful lot like racial profiling." The world seemed to hold its breath. The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been utterly inverted. The change in the officers was immediate and stark. The arrogance deflated, replaced by stiff, formal apologies. They returned Jamal's ID with mumbled excuses about following procedure and community concerns. They quickly retreated to their car and drove away, leaving behind a heavy silence. Mr. Sterling turned to Jamal. The anger was gone from his face, replaced by a deep, weary empathy. "I am so sorry you had to experience that, Jamal. Thank you for your help. And your incredible composure." He didn't offer pity. He offered respect. Weeks later, an invitation arrived at Jamal's modest home. It was from Mr. Sterling, inviting him to participate in a new, fully funded youth mentorship and scholarship program he was founding in Crestwood, aimed at supporting young black students in STEM fields. The incident on the road had been a catalyst, a stark reminder of the systemic barriers faced by kids like Jamal. But the story doesn't end with a scholarship. It ends with a lesson. Jamal learned that day that decency is a currency more valuable than wealth, and that injustice, no matter how entrenched, can be challenged by a voice powerful enough to speak truth to prejudice. Mr. Sterling learned that true privilege is not just wealth, but using that wealth to dismantle the very barriers that protect it. So the next time you see an act of kindness or an act of injustice, ask yourself, Whose voice isn't being heard? And what will you do to make sure it is? Because sometimes, the most profound changes start not with a grand gesture, but with a flat tire on a rainy day.